Hello, welcome to the Brain Scrub, a somewhat improvised approach to mental health. My name is Glenn Saulers. Thanks for tuning in today. Today I want to talk about differences of opinion and the challenge with differences of opinion and a recent experience that I had about this and what I've learned from it and things I've known and things that I've never thought about before, but I think it's really important because we live in a world right now, in my opinion, where it's very black and white thinking. We're very polarized. I think this way, you think this way, and then we have all this conflict. And I've talked about this in other episodes, but this really hit home for me today in respect to those close relationships that we might have out there and how we can jeopardize those relationships through differences of opinion. And it's okay to have a difference of opinion. That's fine. My best friend was here from Toronto, and I'm always so blessed when he comes here and takes time to be with me, because he and I can talk about anything. I've known him for over 30 years, and I always have an outstanding time with him. Like, he and I used to do a lot of adventure things together. We jumped out of a plane. We did marathons, we went mountain biking, and he was my adventure buddy. And then about 20 years ago, I decided to get up and leave Toronto and move out to the West Coast. But whenever we get together, whenever we talk on the phone, like, we just get back into the groove and we're there for one another. We can talk about anything. And I feel so connected with him. So we had 5 days together. And I've also had arguments with him. He is one of the only friends that I've had deep arguments with. And to me, it is a sign of a strong friendship when two people can disagree with each other and work through it. And we've had to do that so many times about the silliest little things. And yet again, it happens where it was the last day. He was heading back to Toronto. We did the Grouse Grind, which is a popular hike in Vancouver, where you go up 2.4 kilometers on a steep incline up to Grouse Mountain. I have done this in about 40 minutes before, and I haven't done it for 6 years, and it took us a bit longer, but it felt like 30 minutes going up the hike with my friend because we were in a pretty heavy debate. And at one point in time, he said to me, "Glenn, I might as well turn around right now and leave." And that led to more discussion and more debate. And we got into an argument. It was not pleasant. And at the end of it all, I was really upset. I was resentful. And I sent him a text, which I know I should not do. And this was when he was back in Toronto, about how upset I was and what happened. And then he sent a long text back to me about me and how upset he was with me and how I reacted. It didn't get us anywhere. And I said, let's have a chat. We then had a chat for about an hour yesterday to resolve the differences, because we both love each other, we both value each other, we both are very important to each other in our lives. We worked through it, as we always have. But there were some things that came up that I wanted to share in this podcast today, and that is, number one, the importance of not always being stuck in your opinion. As I was in this situation, I had a certain opinion based on some research studies done out there, and I'm not going to get into what the topic was, and I was fixated on this is the way it is. And he clarified to me that there are many differences of opinion out there. There's different research papers out there. And he asked me, is this research peer approved? Is it definite? And he used an example with me, which was quite powerful. And he said, it's like, we know that the earth is not flat. There is research that proves that. We live on a round planet. There's photos taken. We cannot argue or debate that. That is the way it is. But much of the opinion out there is just opinion. And even though it might be research backed, you could always find conflicting research to what you might consider as a fact. And that is the challenge we live in today's world. There's so many people doing research. There's so many different opinions out there. If I wanted a supporting opinion on something that I truly believe in, because I want to tell other people, well, this is not an opinion, it is fact, I can find that. And those people that want to fight back with me and say, no, that's wrong, they could probably Google it and find differing opinions and different research that contradict what I'm saying. But yet we live in this place where we think our opinion is fact, or what we know is fact. And that was number one, is just how I was being very argumentative about something that I thought is true and I believe is true, and I still believe, based on what I'm hearing, is true. However, it may not be. And that was his point. He said, you know what, it's okay to have different opinions about things, but it's okay to accept that your opinion might be the wrong opinion, and to not use language that is final, so to speak, that this is the way it is. No, we don't know. So to be open and flexible to different ways of thinking, which allows one to explore. And this translates to what's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. And the Dunning-Kruger effect essentially states that there's many of us who think we're the expert on something because we've learned a bit of information. And then all of a sudden, we're the expert. And then as we do more research, we realize, you know what? Phew, I'm not the expert. I shouldn't have been so confident. And as we start learning more, we realize, wow, there's so much out there to learn. And then eventually we will increase confidence once again. But when we start realizing that we don't know everything, our confidence is going to drop. So that's the Dunning-Kruger effect. It's really that people out there, they think they're the experts because there's something that's written on the internet, or they see it on Facebook, and all of a sudden that's the truth. And this is what's led to a lot of canceling people out. And we see this happening in relationships all the time, that people cancel others out because their opinion differs to their own. Is that the right thing to do? And in my opinion, no. It has removed this ability to take the time to really understand another person. And in this moment, my friend and I should have gotten really curious on, tell me more about why you feel that way. What's going on for you? What do you need? What's your intent? These kind of questions can expand a conversation versus limiting a conversation, which can lead to, if we don't do that, more persistence in trying to be right, or disconnected relationships. Fortunately, my friend and I care about each other so much that we're willing to work through issues. Many of us don't do this. We will hear a certain opinion from a certain individual, and then instantly we create a ripple effect of, this person needs to be removed from the face of the earth, so to speak. And I'm going to use one example out there, and that is Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson has many things to say, and he has many points of view, and he also is a psychologist for a living. He's also experienced mental health issues and is experiencing mental health issues. And he is out there sharing all this information. And we sometimes say the wrong things, as did Jordan Peterson, as does Jordan Peterson. And that's okay. Everybody will say the wrong things at times. But to all of a sudden devalue somebody based on something that they said that maybe you don't agree with, is that helping our world out, or is that slowing our progress and need for human connection and treating each other like human beings, so we reduce our stress levels and we can productively work together to achieve better results and become better human beings. Rather than just, here's my opinion, and you violated my opinion, and therefore I'm canceling you out. Now, I've lived this in many respects, and I've lived this through the fact that I am not with my son because of an opinion that's being formed about who I am, and then being fixated on that opinion. And the consequence is huge because it's impacted many relationships out there. It's impacted stress levels. It's likely going to impact him as he grows up. It's likely impacting him now. And this could all have been solved by talking things out. Kind of like the court system. You go to the court system, you have one side, you have another side, and the judge has to choose, well, which side do they prefer or whatever, and one person wins and one person loses. So we live in this kind of society. There's winners and there's losers, where maybe we can work together and learn something from each other, repair broken relationships, understand what's going on with the other side, being open and honest with our interpretations from what we're seeing from the other side, having that dialogue and debate about things. The other thing I want to talk about is something called projection. And I've talked about this in a previous episode, and projection is that if you were to write down all those things that you like about another person. So, for example, you can do this as an exercise. Think about your partner, if you have one, or a best friend, whomever it might be, and write down everything you like about them. And then write down everything you don't like about them. So what are those character attributes? What are those behaviors? What are those things that they do, that they say, that maybe you really like, and those things that, wow, they do and say this, and I don't like this. Now, if you were to go through the list, and instead of saying you are this, and say I am this, likely a lot of the things that you see in another person are within yourself. Or they could be repressed in yourself, or you might have done that behavior before so you can see it in other people. Now, this is called projection. Sometimes we look at other people and we say, you are this, in a negative way. But if we were to look within ourselves, we can be that way as well. It's just a way to really open up your self-awareness and see that those people that may offend us, they're likely doing things that we have done as well, or things that we do that may or may not land with you, what I just said. Now, the reason I'm saying this is because with my friend and I, he will tell me I'm a certain way. And I and others who know him have seen that side of him. And then as well, like he'll say, this is who you are. You always want to be right. And then I see him as somebody as he always wants to be right. And then I've gone out there and I've talked to other people who might know this individual. And we do this with people and we'll say, you know, that person wants to be right all the time. And they'll say, yeah, they do. And I know I was right. And we'll go around and we'll get this agreement from others that indeed we are right about them. But I am the same way. And then he'll say things about me and I'll be like, that's not who I am. And then I'll ask other people, this is what he said about me. And they'll say, yeah, Glenn, that's who you are sometimes. And I'll have no idea. It's sometimes unconscious to us. So it's great to think about when somebody says to you that you're being a certain way, rather than getting defensive, is to talk to others and say, do I do this sometimes? So-and-so said this about me. Is that me? Because we don't like to see those parts of us that maybe we don't like. And it's easier for me to turn around and say, no, this is who you are. And for him, he said, Glenn, you don't like to be challenged. And I thought about that. And yeah, I don't like to be challenged. I want to be right, as we all do. But then I see it in him as well. And that's just another thing to really reflect on when you have a difference of opinion, rather than canceling somebody out and saying, get out of my life. Is there something they do that's really within me? And to say, oh, okay. They're just a reflection of that for me. Now, how do I work with that? So that's just having that sense of understanding. Two opposing parties, essentially two different viewpoints. Somebody violates your viewpoint, and then you get into an argument, you get into a debate to really understand this thing about projection, and then also the importance of, you know what, sometimes we think that our opinion is correct and we have all the research and data to back it up, but do we really have all the research and data? Is it truly a fact, or is it just a fact from certain individuals? And then if you pull up on the internet and Google, well, is this true? You'll probably find opposing details. So what it comes down to is there's hardly any facts out there. We have meanings about certain things. Now, if we can discuss that and say, you know what, it's okay to have a different opinion. That's fine. Now what? Now what do we do? And my friend and I had this conversation yesterday, and we're just talking a bit about this. We said, you know, there's probably certain topics that we shouldn't discuss because you and I have different viewpoints on it. And I agreed, but I also like to have that discussion. I like to have that debate. I like the fact that we can kind of argue back and forth. But the thing here is I don't want to also harbor resentment and anger, which I did. And then I texted him about that, about this is what I really felt. But I didn't feel safe to bring it up at the time. So I didn't bring it up at the time because I didn't want to get further down the rabbit hole. So what we did is we said, okay, why don't we create a safe word? And it was so funny just hearing this thing about safe word. And when one of us feels that we're about to go down a rabbit hole, maybe we should stop so we don't damage the relationship further. We came up with a safe word that we're going to use. And I just thought that was so brilliant. Let's say this word when one of us feels this is going in the wrong direction. Perfect way to set boundaries, an ideal way to maintain a friendship, and now we know what we're going to do going forward. Because otherwise, we have fallen into different perceptions about things. Like, for example, I used to text him, I didn't hear back, and I was wondering, why aren't you responding to me? And I got upset about that. And then he told me, well, Glenn, you know, I just don't always respond to my texts. And I had no idea that was the case. I took it personally, which again created divide. The message here, everybody, is rather than canceling out people, try to understand what's going on. Learn from other people. Look at the opinion you have. Is your opinion 100% fact-based, true, or is it just your opinion and something you happen to find on the internet? And then sometimes these opinions explode out there and they create more chaos, more destruction, more divide, more polarization. There is this systems thinking approach out there about the power of paradox. And that is that there's pros and cons to everything. And if you can live in this paradox of looking at both the cons and the pros, what you like, what you don't like, and discussing that and being okay with that level of uncomfort and being okay with difference of opinion, we are going to become, I believe, we will have more connection in this world. We'll be able to resolve more problems. We'll be able to treat each other as human beings rather than us versus them. We all have one life. That's it. And I find too often, whether it's through war, through murder, through destruction of environments, this us versus them mentality is taking away our one chance to be a human being and to live an amazing life. Thanks for listening.